Hello everyone and welcome to the last game that can impact the standings and the final result of the tournament. It is Vincent Keymer versus Praggnanandhaa, and if you haven't seen Gukesh versus Arjun, Arjun has defeated Gukesh with the black pieces, and that means Praggnanandhaa only needs a draw and he wins Tata Steel 2025. Now, no spoilers, let's dive straight into it. It's a thriller of a game. If you haven't seen it, you guys will enjoy this one, so let's dive in. Vincent with white opens with pawn to e4. Sorry about that. We have pawn to c6, Prag goes for the Caro-Kann, knight to f3, pawn to d5, and knight to c3, inviting pawn to d4. But we have bishop to g4, the so-called Mindeno variation. We have pawn to h3 and captures on f3. Pawn to e6, nicely putting pawns on light squares as you have traded off your light square bishop. Bishop to e2 and knight to f6. We have castles kingside and only now pawn to d4. Prag grabs more space in the center, knight back to b1 and bishop to d6. We have pawn to c3 challenging the pawn and pawn to c5 defending. And there is a game knight to a3 was played in this position, but here we have c captures on d4, and it is not as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So okay, c captures on d4 and knight to a3, inviting bishop captures on a3, but giving up your beautiful bishop just to mess up white's pawn structure on the queen side isn't very modern thing to do. We have castles kingside, knight to c4 attacking the bishop, and bishop to c7, nicely controlling the knight. We have pawn to d3 and knight to c6, a4 and pawn to a6. Okay. Very, very intense position, and the situation on the clock is, a lot of time for both of them, so of course they both want to win. Prag to win the tournament, and Vincent to improve his standings a little bit and to take down a very strong player like Prag. Plus he has the white pieces. I don't think he feels that he's in any way not on the same level as Prag, so of course he has to play for the win. We have pawn to g3, pawn to b5, and now knight back to a3, putting pressure on b5, rook to b8 defending, and we have a trade. Captures, and bishop to g5. Now pinning the knight here, we have bishop to d6 and rook f to c1. Attacking the knight, knight to e5, attacking the queen, and queen to g2. So okay, for the moment, maybe a bit of a passive square for the queen, but in the future you are looking maybe to advance h4, maybe to push the h-pawn. Knight e to d7, and now knight to c2, putting pressure on the d4 pawn, queen to b6 defending, and now pawn to b4. We have pawn to e5, strengthening the center, and pawn to h4. We have rook to a8, offering a rook trade, and queen back to f1. Vincent gets the queen back into the game. Rook f to c8, and now we have a trade on a8, captures, and rook to a1. So not much to explain here. These are pretty standard moves. We have queen to c6 defending the rook, rook captures and queen captures, and now just queen to c1, getting the queen into the game, and you don't really gain anything by pinning the knight as the queen is defended by the bishop. So here we have queen to b7, and a bishop to d1. The bishop would very much like to control this diagonal. We have knight to e8 and bishop back to d2. We have knight to b8 and now knight to e1. Both players just horsing around a little bit. Knight to c6. Knight to c6 and bishop to b3. Now the bishop controls this diagonal, and it comes at the price of the b4 pawn. But Vincent has an idea here. Knight captures on b4, we have bishop captures, and knight to f3. Okay, he puts pressure on e5, and also knight g5 will put some very nice pressure on that f7 pawn. So queen to e7, defending on e5, and now comes queen to c6. Knight g5 is also very nice, but you can defend with knight to d6, so it's not as impressive. Queen to c8, on the other hand, is very, very precise by Vincent. We have pawn to h6, creating some breathing room for the black king, and now queen captures on b5, winning back material, bishop to d6, and pawn to h5. So Vincent is the one controlling more space, and he's the one pushing here. And notice that it's a game of bishops of opposite colors, so you know that if the white bishop attacks, the black bishop cannot oppose it, and vice versa. So knight to f6, we have knight to h4 going after that f5 square, and queen to d7. We have queen to a6, now with some back rank threats. Also, if the queen moves, you could lose a bishop. king to h7, and now queen back to a2, adding more pressure to that f7 pawn. So king g8 defending, and now king to g8, and now queen to a8 with check. We have queen to e8, blocking and offering a queen trade, and queen to a6. Of course, when you control more space, you decline the trade of material. Bishop to f8, and now queen to b6. Just pushing, further and further. And Prague, well, in a difficult position, should play something like queen to d7. Capturing on h5 is possible, but it is met with the same idea that the move he plays should be met with, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. But here Prague played knight to h7. And do you know what the move is that should have been played here, as it wasn't? It's actually a very tricky one. Queen to g6. This is what Vincent played, but it's not the correct idea. The correct idea is knight to g6. And it seems like, okay, yes, that knight is very impressive there, but what is it actually doing? I mean, what's the threat? Well, the threat is to win the e5 pawn. It's as simple as that. And there's nothing black can do here. Like, you can bring the knight back, which is not what you really want to do, as you just played knight to h7. You're just going to play queen c7, and that's it. You win a pawn, and then you win the game. And, of course, this is impossible due to this very nice pin. So after knight to h7, queen to g6 was played, which is also very nice, just not as nice as knight to g6. And now knight to g5. The knight gets into the game and also serves as a defender of the f7 pawn. And also, if you're not careful, some knight f3 check could really hurt. We have queen to f5. And now queen to b8, putting pressure on the bishop and still keeping an eye on that e5 pawn. Bishop to c4, and now bishop to d6. How is Vincent to push here? We have king to g2, king to f8, and now comes knight to g6 with check. Here, knight to f3 was the way to go. You have to remove the defender of the f7 square, but Vincent first goes knight to g6 check, king to g8, and now queen to d7, again putting pressure on f7 and on this bishop, and the f4 might be somewhat unpleasant, maybe some f4, e5, captures, and so on. So bishop to f8, and now knight back to h4. Maybe spotting knight to f3. Now we have bishop back to d6 and knight to f5. Attacking the bishop, we have bishop to f8, and now knight to h4, bishop to d6, and here Vincent, probably repeating to gain some time, finally goes for knight to f3, which removes the defender of the f7 pawn. And you could play a lot of things. For example, you could capture on f3 first and then try to play something like bishop captures on f7 with check, king h7, king captures, and just enjoy this superior endgame where you are up a pawn. Objectively, it is completely winning. So Prague has to decide between two very, very hard positions. He decides for queen to f8, which keeps more material on the board for the moment, but Vincent, of course, trades. We have captures, and the bishop captures on f7 with check. Now again, Prague having to make the difficult choice of trading bishops or keeping the bishops on the board, but it is Vincent who's attacking, so that dark square bishop will not be very helpful in defense. But maybe, more pieces on the board, more complicated the position, maybe this is the way to go. So okay, bishop back to b3 by Vincent, and now bishop to e7. We have queen to e6, and now bishop to f6. And if that queen ever moves, you are going to get checkmated. Also, you have to be mindful of h6. That's also a very nasty move that cannot be prevented. So this is what Prague has to worry about. We have bishop to c4, king to h7, and now queen to f5 with check, king to h8, and queen to g6. Now with some h6 ideas. So bishop to e7, not allowing the bishop to be a target, and bishop to f7 now. We have bishop back to b4 and queen to f5. Still waiting with the h6 pawn push. Bishop back to d6 and now king to h3, improving the position as much as possible before deciding on what to do next. Bishop to e7, we have king to g4, bishop to f6, and now bishop to e6. We have queen to e7, and now Vincent goes for pawn to f4. He pushes further. G captures, we have g captures, and now queen to d6, and here Vincent played bishop to c4. F captures on e5 is just a very nice way to force a win. Because what do you play? If you trade queens, that's of course winning for white, but if the bishop captures, then queen g6, and there's no stopping either h6, or if the queen moves, then bishop to f5, will be winning for white. But minute on the clock for Vincent. He plays bishop to c4, and now Pragg throws in a queen to b8, and now look at this, bishop to d5. We have e captures on f4, and now one last opportunity for Vincent was queen to e6 first before advancing the pawn to e5, but he advanced the pawn to e5 right away. And now the position is once again a draw, and we know that a draw here means that Pragg wins Tata Steel 2025. So bishop captures on e5 was played. We have bishop to e4, threatening checkmate, and now just king to g8. Pragg just escapes and says, nope, no checkmate here. So what can Vincent do? He tries queen e6 check, Pragg goes back, king to h8. We have queen to g6, again threatening mate. Not king to g8, that would be a terrible idea, inviting h6, but now queen to g8, just stopping checkmate. But not right yet, not right away. First queen to c8 check was played, and only after bishop to f5, now queen to g8. We have king back to f3, and now bishop to f6. The only move that draws the game for Pragg, but not a difficult one to spot as you really have no moves. So that's your only move. And here we have bishop to e4. Here, h6 right away still does nothing. You just move the bishop and wait. But here, bishop to e4 was played, gaining more time on the clock and maybe waiting to see if Pragg will make a mistake. And Pragg does. Here, any move with the bishop other than bishop to e5 is a draw for Pragg. But that's exactly where he moved the bishop. He played bishop to e5, and now Vincent's position is completely winning, and he played it, pawn to h6. And now the reason it's winning is because if you now, let's say you just continue with bishop to f6, the problem is after captures and captures, you will see queen to e8 with check, and after you block, there's queen h5 check, and now you cannot go to h7. Of course, you have to go here, and now the bishop on f6 is lost. That's the problem. You're going to be down a piece, and you're going to lose the game. So here, after h6, bishop to b8 was played, Pragg trying to hold on this way, but now queen g5, the absolute strongest move, and one where Vincent has absolutely nothing to show for. If he captures here, then just a nice queen h6 check, of course, followed by queen captures on h7 checkmate. So queen to f8 was played, but it doesn't matter. Just a nice forcing h captures on g7, and that's it. We have queen captures on g7, queen to h4 with check, and he was in this position on move 80 that Praggnanandhaa resigned the game, and with it, the instant victory in Tata Steel 2025, which means Gukesh is back, and Gukesh and Pragg are now going into playoffs, and they will battle it out to see who is the true Tata Steel master of 2025. And yeah, here you resign because you are in check. Of course, this is covered by the bishop. Once you go here, then a nice bishop d5 check, and that's it. You either give up the queen, and your only other legal move is king f8, which is met with queen to d8 checkmate. So yeah, he had it, then he didn't have it, and then he had it again. But yeah, that's time trouble. That's the if anyone told you what are the chances that both Gukesh and Pragg lose in the final round, you'd say like there's no chance. But that's the pressure of the final round. It happened, and now Nodrbek is probably beating himself up as had he won, he would also be in the tiebreak conversation. But yeah, I'll keep you guys informed. We'll see what happens, and yeah, stay tuned. I would like to thank John Tardif, Pierre Murad, Rani Lavi, Andreas Rosenthal, and Andrei Strade for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, but of course, finishing the coverage of the Tata Steel 2025 Masters Edition. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.